to organize it in a very good looking manner. So, and these are the various elements we use in organizing our HTML into different sections. So at the top of your application or at the top of your website, you have what we call the header. Now, This header is this header is used to represent the header section. If you are used to Microsoft Word or some other applications, you must have known what we mean by header. Header is always the beginning part or the starting part of every document. So the same way in HTML, so the header is the first part of a word or of your website. So for instance, if you come here now at this heading where you have this place where you have the IT Skills Center logo, the bootcamp, the regular programs, the testimonials, this place where you have the navigation bar, this part, the entire part is called the words, the header. So which means that in the header, you have majorly two things in the header. We have the logo and the navigation bar. So from here is the logo by the left, and towards the right, by the right is what? Is the navigation bar where you have bootcamp, regular programs, testimonials, and so on. So, and this navigation bar enables us to navigate through our entire words, through the different pages of our website or our application. So, if you check back here, so and the navigation bar is always introduced using the words, the nav elements, and then after the nav elements, you have the words, the section. So you group, so this section elements is used to group contents into different sections. So for instance, after introducing the header tag and the navigation words tag using the nav elements, the next thing you have to do is to group your websites into different sections. For instance, here where we have the image of someone looking at the screen, right? And then the image this land your dream tech job. So this part is called the hero section. So it means that if you want to introduce this, you have to use the words, the section element to say that okay, this was section one, and then here where we have learn to code, change your life is another word section. This the training bootcamp, how it works, is another word section. So you see, you group your section, you group your websites based on the information they are words they are passing. For instance, the testimonial section. So you see this testimonial section. This is a section where what our past students have been saying, what they have been saying about us, and what they believe is possible or how far we can take you guys. And then you also have maybe the frequently asked questions section, right? Where we outlined all possible questions that people could what ask. Just like what is so these are what different sections, and you use the section tag to do that. That's in different sections. So you have the words, the article. Now this article represents independent content. For instance, you can have a text in your where you repeat your text in your website. So those parts is a word. You can say that part is a word. Is it can be an article. So an article is a part of what is a part of a section. Then why the footer represents the words, the footer or the last part of it. So when you go down here, you see here where you see this color that has a gray color. That is the footer. So let me give you another example. So you see here, this is the header, These are the hero section. This is another section. This hiring for new jobs is another section. And then below it is the footer. Here that has this place that has a black background where we have the logo and the link to other part of the website. So this is the footer. So that is what our semantics is all about. Now, if I come here, I'm going to have, let me say, introduction to CSS. So inside this my body, remember, inside this my body, so this is where I have my words, this is where I have my header, right? Because my header will always appear at the top. So after my header, and then inside my header,
Where
so
is your
um Barry, what did I say that should be inside the header? Which elements should be inside the header?
A topic now.
where is
It,
interesting?
it's not a topic. I just mentioned it now. So inside your header, you have your words, your nav elements. Remember, your header is where your logo is. Remember. So for me to introduce my logo, I will have my words, my image tag. So here, let me create a folder called images. So, and then I can go to my file manager, then copy, maybe, let me go to any of my downloads. So let me copy this and go to my desktop, foundational class, and then images. So let me paste this inside my images folder. So right now I have my images. So let's assume that I want to add my logo. So I'm going to open this my images and then call what? The SRC. So if you can remember from our last class, inside the SRC, you have your words where you is where you indicate the five parts of that image, where you write the words, the five part of that image you want to put. Then after that, you can also add width, let's say 100, and height of what? 100. So with this, then after that, as you can see this my nav, inside this my nav, I talked about the list tag the last time. So who can tell me the two types of list tag we have? Who can tell me? Hello, anybody?
I think you mentioned is it open and whatever, open and closing whatever.
No. Okay. That is for a tag. So we have two types of list elements or list tags. We have the we have the
Okay, okay, OL and UL.
good. So we have the ordered list and the what unordered list, which is what UL and what OL. So for our link, you see here that link, that header is used in achieving that OL and UL is used in achieving this navigation bar here. If you watch this home, jobs, learn, and then forum, and all these things here, they are inside a UL. They are inside the UL elements. So let's say that I want to achieve this. So inside my UL, inside this my nav bar or my nav elements, so I'll introduce my words, my UL. I will introduce my UL, and then inside my UL, I'll have my words, my list. So let me just impute li and then give it words. Let's say home, and then I will introduce another li and give it words about. I will introduce another li and give it contactors, right? So now let me answer your question where you had an issue with seeing your work live.
Yes.
Eh?
Yes.
You can
Yes.
see my screen, right?
Very well.
All right. So let me answer your question of let me tell you why you were not able to view your work live. So if you come here, you see this icon now that is like
Yes.
a box.
A box. Yeah.
So you see this icon where you have it's called extensions.
Okay.
Now, VS Code have certain extensions that enable us to work better as developers. So they are mostly used during development. That is when we are building our websites. So they help us work faster, smarter, and better, and they make our work faster, as I've said. So if you click here, you see a bar where they will tell you to do what to set extension. So there's an extension called Live Server. So you can even be doing it as but just hold on. So you see this live server. If you once you write live, you see it pop up. If you click on it, something like this will appear. You see this disable and uninstall. This disable and
Yeah.
uninstall is if I had not installed it before, it will show me what install. So if
Okay.
you see the install here and then you click on it, so after like some minute, within some seconds, it will install. So once it installs, once it is installed, so what you now do is you come back to your, so you can close this tab and then come back to your HTML and then right click on your HTML. You see this right click? So you look for an option. You see this option here where you see open with live
Live
server.
server.
Yes.
Yes.
So once you click on it, so it will direct me to my, have you seen now? It has directed me to my work. So this is what I've
I work.
written so far. This is my image. This is the home, about, and contact. Does that make sense?
Yes. Very well.
Then alternatively, you can open it directly from your folder. So when you come to this folder, when you go to your file manager, so this is
Okay.
my file manager. I'll locate where I created the listing. As you can see, this is my foundational class words folder,
Okay.
right? So you have to locate where you created the folder
Okay.
on your file manager
Live man-
and then open it. So as you can see here, I'm seeing my words. You see this index, right?
Yes.
So as you can see here, it's showing that it's a HTML document and it's even showing the Chrome icon, meaning that you can open it through what Chrome or any other browser that is your default browser. So once you click on it, you double tap on it. Have you seen that it has opened again? Look at it.
Okay. But mine was just
So
I tried that, but mine was just rolling and rolling. And it now open another it opened on another browser trying to kind of I don't know, maybe access, I don't know, maybe a kind of site or so. Instead of opening it like this, it was just trying to link me or trying to open it with my, Edge. Edge is also a kind of browser that come with the
yes,
system.
yes. So
So
maybe you didn't set a default browser. Do you have your default browser? So you can go to your settings and set a default browser that will always open your.
my default browser is a Google. What's it called? Google is my Google
Okay,
Chrome.
Google Chrome.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So now the essence of using this live server is that as you're making your changes, it will be reflecting immediately. You don't need to come and start refreshing your browser to see the updates. For instance, as I'm typing this way, so the next thing after the header is what we call the words, the section, right? So inside this section, you can write anything you want. Let's say you can put your H1 and say introducing introducing the best training center in what? In Lagos. Then after the H1, you can just come here and impute a paragraph. So inside this paragraph, you can just write a text that IT Skills Center is the best training center in Lagos. So you see, as I'm writing this, if I go back to my browser, I've seen that it has reflected, right? So this part is what we call what? A section on its own. Then after that, you can also have your logo. So if you visit the website, you always see the last part of your application, just like here. This last part is the what? Is the footer. Is the footer. Then all these other places are what? Different sections, like explore jobs in Africa by location is a section. This also by profession is a section, and the rest of it. So that is it about HTML
Uh,
semantics.
CSS.
So now, no, not CSS now. So let's quickly go to what we have today. But before that, we have already known how to add images. So let's talk about video and audio. So what if you want to add a video to your website? How do you do that? So a video is added using the words, the video element. What did I say?
A video is added by adding what we call video elements.
That's great. So if you want to, let's assume that we have another section. Let's put another section tag. You see the way I'm typing it. So let's put another section tag, and then call it what? Let's say um, um, let me use H2, or let me use H1, and then write our media section. You know what media is? Media has to do with your players, your videos, your images, your audios, and the rest. So whatever has to do with passing out of information in either in a graphical format or in a video and a very appealing format. So we can also have this. So here, as we said, so let me introduce my video. So once you write your video tag, so this is the first step of putting your words, your video. I remember what I said in the last class that a video has the opening tag and the words and the closing tag. A tag always has a closing tag, an opening tag, and a closing tag. Then for those, there are some tags that do not have closing tags. They are called self-closing words tags or self-closing elements, such as our image. If you see this, if you look at this image tag closely, you see that it doesn't have a corresponding closing tag. It is self-closed, and most self-closed tags always have a forward slash at the end this way. So you see this forward slash I put here, it is to show you that it is a self-closing tag, but it is optional in some cases. So another self-closing tag is this meta tag, this meta tag, and also so as we proceed, if I encounter anyone, I'll tell you whether it is an what's it called, a self-closing tag or not. So after that, so after introducing your video tag, now video has certain attributes that it works with. So who can remind me what I said about attributes?
The attribute are the feature of or character of maybe let me say HTML or maybe CSS or whatever you want, whether JavaScript. So their attribute is usually their character, their features. So what they work, what
Okay, good.
they work.
So yes, so HTML, what's it called? Attributes are those features or those or those keywords that our tags depend on to have its full functionality. For instance, this SRC is an attribute. So, and it has what does it do? It is used in getting the image we want to put in our image tag, because without it, because it's a very important attribute, because without it, no image can show on our browser, right? So it is used to locate where that image exists in our folder. And then the next attribute is the what? The alternative attributes, or you can just call it simply the alt attributes. This alt attribute is used to add a description to the words, to the image, just in case it enables screen readers, and also just in case, what's it called? In case there's a problem in displaying the image. So the title of that image or a description of that image can show. For instance, if your image is is a cat that is lying down, a black cat lying down on a green grass. So what you just come here, you write what? A black cat, a black cat on a what? On a green grass. So that if this image doesn't show, so let me do this here. You see this my logo. So let me use an alt attribute in this logo. So I'll just write logo. I'll just put inside this alt, I'll just put website words logo. So if I come back here, maybe let me just make a mistake and remove this G so that the image will not appear. So if I go back here, as you can see, my image is no longer showing. So, but it is just showing the word, the website logo. That's the description I have here. So that is it. So the same way, our video elements has different attributes, such as have video attributes, such as the SRC, the controls, and what? Autoplay. So once you impute and this is how you impute it. So once you impute your words, your video, you put your words SRC. So let me go and then let me look for a video in my file. So I don't know, I don't really have videos like that, but I think I should have. Or it seems I've deleted it. The video I had, I've deleted it. Let me see. Oh, I've deleted. I don't have any video here, but it's fine. Let me just do something. So maybe I'll use audio. Let me use audio now to give you, because whatever happens in the audio can also, the way you write your audio is the same way you write your words, your video. So let me come here now and create because it's good to organize your folders very well. Inside my folder, my root folder, um let's say videos folder or audios, in case if you are building an application that requires audio, where people like all those music streaming applications. So you can come here and create your words, your audios, and then inside here, so let me see, let me copy this audio here and then go to my folder. So you see the way I used to copy and paste the whatever I need, like my images, right? Who is confused on that? So I'll come and now paste it inside my audio folder. So after pasting a particular audio or image or anything, it's always good to rename it. So I can just rename it to, I think the title of this song is Lost Boy. So I'll just make it Lost Boy. So, and again, if you are using if your images or your audios is made up of two-letter words, it's always good to use camel casing, or you use underscore to separate them. Just like as I named this Lost Boy, in between this Lost and Boy, I used an underscore to separate it. So when we move on, we understand why we have to always use this underscore to separate two words, or we just use camel casing. Camel casing means that the second word we always start with what? A capital letter. So let me go back to my code. So I'm going to change this to audio. So, but whatever we do, the difference is just changing it to either video or audio. So I can just change this back to audio, right? And then put my words, all my tags. So I can just put my SRC equal to, so this SRC, I'm going to check the file parts because is a folder. I'm going to use dots and forward slash and then call, you see my audios, and then inside my audios, I'll locate my audio that I want to add. Then after that, you add your controls. Now, these controls include your play and pause button, your playback, and some other controls that you use in controlling your applications, your pause and play, and the rest. So after that, you implement your words. Okay, well, that is for image anyway. You can add width and height for videos. You know, most times videos are always either big. So if you want to resize the the height and width of the video, so you can just simply use your width and height attributes. Just the same way you do that. Just the same way you do that in your image tag. So once I add these controls here, so this thing will be ready. So, and if I go back to my browser, as you can see here, so you can see this. So this is now playing, and then this is how you build. So have you seen that our audio is now playing? So this is how you add music. So for instance, for those of you that are interested in working on where people can come and download songs and the rest. So this is how we impute was audio. Now, what I just did now is exactly the same thing that happens for a video. So, but the only difference is that you change this audio to what? To a what? To a video. So once you change it to a video, it will, okay, so because this is not a video actually, so that's why is video.
But you've not changed it here in that SRC now.
Okay, yes, because I don't have a video. Look at it here. Have you seen how it's appearing here?
Yes.
So, but if this is an actual video, I don't have a video in my folder. Then alternatively, if you want to copy any video from somewhere, let's say maybe videos. So you can also go to where is this? Okay, I think this HD today. So you can go and check out any video you want to copy and paste, right? All you just need to do is to um, go to that video, right, and then right click on that video. So once you right click on that video, it will show you the link. Okay, let me use an image here. Let me use an image. For instance, what do I mean? Cars. Let me just set cars. As you can see this image, you see the way this image is. If I want to use this image on my website, I'll just come here and copy the URL. So once I move my mouse over the image, I'll just right click. So you see different options to do what? Open a new tab, open all these. But what you need is what? Copy what? Link address. So once you copy the link address, you come here and do what? Inside this SRC, you just have to come and paste it inside this link address. It's always a very large, a very long address. So once you copy it this way, and then go back to your browser to your work. So it's not showing. I think let me know why. But this SRC cards. Wait.
I think
Okay, sorry.
it's on the
That's
top.
copy image address. Copy image address. Sorry, not link address. Link address is to take you to where the image is located. So you just copy image address. So that's the correct thing. Copy image address. So if you copy it, you come and paste it inside here. Oh, this is very large. So some of them are always short. Look at it. You see the image appearing here. So that is it about it. But the best is just to download the image. So once you right click, you see save image as, right? Save image as, and then it will open. You go to the location where you want to save your image, and then save it there. Does that make sense? So if I want to save this image now in my images folder, I'll go to desktop, look for my foundational class, and inside my foundational class, I'll go to my images and then click on what? Save. So after saving it, I can come and rename it to whatever I want. So have you seen now it has appeared? I can rename it to what? To cat. So if I now want to use this, so instead of using this long link, I'll just rename it to what? Images slash what? cat.jpg, and then it appears on my website. So have you seen now? It's still working very perfectly. So, but for our media, so this is not showing because it's not a real image. So what you just need to do is to change this back to what? To an what's it called? So to a video. So, and videos, remember, videos are always in MP4 or MKV. There are other extensions that images usually used to have. So you can even come here inside this, you can specify the type and say type equal to audio, right? If it is for audio, then you put audio slash what? MP4. Sorry, MP3 is for audio, while MP4 is for video, and the rest of the extensions. So now let's go to CSS, because all these things we have been writing is not really looking good in the eye, because some of you must have started asking, how do I now make it look beautiful? How do I now add colors to it? So does anybody have any questions so far? Who and who are here? Job and so we have Usman. How are you? Hello, Usman. Are you here? How about you, Afolabi?
I'm fine, sir. Yeah, good
All
evening.
right. So are you following the class?
Yes,
Okay. So you were not
yes.
in our last class. So before you, our classes are being recorded actually. So if you missed this class, you can go back to our YouTube channel and view it. The link is also there on the group. So how about you, Usman?
Yeah.
Hello, Usman. All right, so let's quickly continue to avoid wasting of time. So Now, what is CSS?
I'm
CSS.
with you, sir. Sorry.
Okay, great. Well done. Are you following?
Thank you. Yes, I'm following, sir.
All right. So, what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Styles Sheets. So it is a language used to style the presentation of web pages in written in HTML, including their words, their layouts, their colors, and what fonts. So which means that if we want to add colors to it, you see the way this website is well arranged. You see the way it's looking beautiful like this, right? Where you have these colors. You see the way this land your now, okay, even look at this bootcamp, regular programs, testimonials, and the rest. You see the way they are being arranged. If you look at our own header now, how is just like is appearing vertically with what home, about, contact, and then our logo. Instead of everything is just vertical. Instead of this, our header should be what aligned horizontally. So if we want to achieve this alignment, this positioning, we can decide that this video now should be by the right of the page. We can decide that, oh, we want to add colors to this, we want to arrange all these things. So for this thing, you see the way all these things are being arranged, you see the way this color is appearing, and everything is looking so fine. That is the duty of what? That is the duty of CSS. So sometimes if you are good in graphics design, you might say, okay, you might start bringing your design skills here, right? But it's quite different from graphics design. But it can also help you if you are good, if you have a good if you have a good if you are keen to design and you like designing stuff. So all these things to make your application appear very well. You see the way if I'm clicking on this thing now, you see the way this thing is appearing. So you can also achieve this with is what CSS help us to do was to achieve. So moving forward, and they also allow you to include the words, the layout. The layout has to do with the appearance, the structure, the colors, and the words and the fonts. So how does CSS work? So CSS applies style rules towards HTML elements. So each rule consists of what? A selector, right? A selector, a property, and a value. So do you know that as we have written this our first page now, right? You see the way it's looking. So it has no color, it has nothing. So if we want to apply color here now, maybe let's say to this home, if we want this color, the color of this home tag or this home text to change, we need to ask ourselves, what is that element that is holding it, right? Is it an anchor tag? Is it UL? Is it LI? So if we find out the name of the element that is holding it, the next thing is to apply what we call what? CSS rules to them. Now, those CSS rules will be like, okay, I want to change the color to red, from black to red, or I want to even move it from this my left towards to my right, or I want to whatever you want to do with it. So you need to call the elements and then using CSS, you do what? Apply rules to it. It's just like sending someone on an errand, right? So if you can't just call somebody if there are hundreds of persons in a room, right? You need to identify who you want to give who you want to send the errand. If it is Callistus, as all of us are here, if it is okay, you can say, oh, Mr. Callistus, oh yeah, please, can you stop addressing us and do some other things? Or you call your name or you call your brother at home. So that's the same way. That is what happens in CSS. So CSS needs a HTML tag or a HTML element to do what? To carry out its function. So before a CSS can act, it needs a HTML to do what? To act on. So that is where selectors come in. So a what's it called? A typical CSS code is made up of these three parts that were mentioned here: the selector, the property, and the what and the value. So, which means that in your CSS, you'll be having a selector, a property, and a what value, and all these things make up the what the style rules. Now, what do you mean by the selector? The selector targets the HTML elements to style. So, which means that before you style an element, you have to target it. So, and how do you target it? You target it using a what? A selector. Then the second one is the property. The property specifies what style to do what to add to that HTML element you was selected. So, for instance, color, font size. So you can decide that, oh, I want the color of the HTML elements I've selected to be green or blue or white. Then the value defines the words, the styling for the words for the property. So for instance, so here is an instance, right? So you have this the way it is written, the syntax. This is the basic syntax. So first of all, you have the words, the selector, the property by the left, and the words, the value by the right. And then every property and value must always be written inside the curly braces. So this is an example here where you have the words, the paragraph words, tag. Now, now let me say that, okay, I want to change. So this is what I've written so far, right? This is my heading introducing the training center, the best training center in Lagos. So you see, this is my H1. If I want to style it, I'll just come here. Anyway, let me just quickly do something, but I'll still explain afterwards. So let's say that I want to style this. So this is how you write your CSS. So you see, you need to select the HTML elements you want to style, right? Using words. So you can call, there are various ways you can select, but for now, let us use the name of the words of the HTML. So we can call a P. So once you write a P here, CSS already knows that, oh, I'm trying to select a paragraph. So this P, and then after writing your P, you put your words, your opening and closing words, curly braces. You see the way I wrote it like this. You see the way I wrote it. And then this opening and closing curly braces include what? Then inside this opening and closing brackets, curly braces, is where you now add your words, your properties with their corresponding words, values. So if you go and put color here, right? Color, and then put what? Red. So this color is the property, and this red is the what? Is the value that you want. So if I go back to my page, as you can see here, my paragraph is now what? Red in color. But let me give it to my H1. So I can turn it, I can change this paragraph to what? H1. So in this case, H1 is my selector, and then my property includes what? My property is the words, is the color, while the value is the words, is the red. Then if I still want to change this to other colors, there are many other colors I can change this to. I can give this what? Blue, a blue color. And if I go back here, as you can see, all my H1 is what? Is blue in color. So that is what CSS does for us. I can even increase the font size by giving it to us, saying font size. So we'll look into all these one after the other. So font size equal to what? Let's say 40 what? Pixels. So it will increase the what? The font size. So that is it um, about the CSS syntax and CSS rules, style rules. So who has any question based on what I've said so far? Are we still?
Yes, I have a question.
All right.
Okay. Now, we thank you for the. I really enjoyed the class, especially the CSS. It's very short and I mean very brief, and very clear. But here is what I want you to kind of go over to explain better. You know the elements, so to speak. I think you said the selector, the what's it called, property and the value. Now, the where I'm having the issue now is the selector, not the property is very the property and the value. So it's very clear. For that selector, can you please go over it a bit, please, sir, so that it should be quite clear. That selector is just
Okay, good.
what I
Okay, good. Now, this selector is just a technique or it's just a way of calling our words, our HTML tag, right? Right?
okay.
So, just like as I said before, if you want to give somebody, if you want to send somebody on an errand, right, or you want to give somebody money, so the first of all, you can't just, if there are many persons in a room, for instance, and then you want to just give one person, so you can't start calling everybody, right? So you need to call that particular person you want to do what you want to give that money. So thereby that process is called what selecting that person. Like which word did I use here? It is used to do what? To target, right? So selector is like targeting that. So you see the way I added this color here, right? Now there are different HTML elements here. Remember, I have my home now is inside what? UL, right? And then I also have my video or audio tag. I also have my paragraph. But I want to give my styling to my words to my H1. So I need to target my H1. So the process of targeting it is what we call what selector. Selecting it. So using a selector. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
for you to now select it, you have to call it by its name. So just like here now, I wanted to do what? To give my H1 a color of what? Blue, and then also increase the font size. So I will have to select it, selecting it by its what? Its name. I have to call my name, the name of that element directly, call the name. So, but one thing with this, don't as we proceed, you will see more. There are more detailed. I have given more detailed explanation on the selection, but it's just the process of calling the elements you want to do what style. If I want to style my section now, if I put this, I can call my section tag, my section element. So you see here. So once I call my section elements, you see that all the text inside my section elements are now what blue in color. So that is what we call. So in this case, this section name is serving as a what? As a selector, selecting all elements that are called what? All section elements. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So don't worry. As we proceed further, there I have a detailed explanation on it. There are various types of CSS. So these various types is just used to do what? To categorize where we write our words, to distinguish the different places where we can write our CSS. So what do I mean? There are various approaches. There are various approaches we can take in writing our CSS, or there are various places. So, for instance, we have the first way of writing our CSS is by what? Using the inline CSS approach. Now, what does this inline CSS approach do? So, this inline CSS involves writing directly to an HTML element using the style attributes. So, for instance, if I want to add any styling or color, if I want to design, let me just use the word. If I want to design a particular element, right? So I'll just have to write my CSS directly inside that word, directly inside that HTML element, directly. So what do I mean by directly? So you see the way I wrote this using my words, my style attributes. So I'm happy we have already explained what attributes are. So there's also another attribute called the style attributes. So this style attribute is used in doing what? This style attribute is used in writing inline words, CSS. So let me give you guys an example. So you see the same way I'm using this, I can comment, I can let me just remove this. And then inside my H1, right, you see this opening tag. Remember what I said in the last class? This first H1 by my left is called the what? The opening tag, while the second H1 by my right is called the what? The closing tag. And closing tags always have a forward what? A forward slash, right? Now, here, I can now come here inside my opening tag. I will introduce my words, my style attributes, and then put equals to with my quotation mark. So inside this style tag, you start writing your words, your properties and their words, values that you want to add. So for instance, if I want to change the color of this my H1, right, I can put words. I will just have to write words, color, and then but instead of using equal to, I'll just use what? I'll just use color blue. So I'll just use my colon. So you don't need to put equal to, just the same way we wrote it before. Then if you want to add more properties, so you can put let's say font size, right? So font size, I can increase it. I can say font size 50 words pixels. So you see, so with this, one thing with inline styling is that it only designs or it only adds the style to that particular element where it is was defined. So it can't come here and affect the paragraph. It can't affect your UL. It will only affect the one that it is directly written inside. So if I come back to my browser, so you see that my H1, have you seen this H1 is what? Blue in what? In color, because that's the only thing we styled using our words inline styling. So the takeaway here is that inline styling involves writing your CSS code directly inside your words, your HTML elements, using the words, the style attributes. Then the second part is what we call, the second type is internal CSS. Now, this internal CSS means involves defining your CSS in a word, in a style block inside the words, the head of the elements. So, although not just the head of the elements, not just the head of the HTML elements, you can also add it or before the words, before the closing body tag. Body tag or the body elements. So here, let's assume that I want to add another style in here. So you see the way I wrote out this style. Watch here. It is always the last thing I write. So if you have like hundreds or thousands of lines of HTML code, your CSS, if you want to use inline styling, your CSS will always appear at the bottom before the words, the closing body tag. So you see the way I wrote this style here, and I said that it is inside words, inside the style tag. So you come here and put your words, your style tag, right? And inside your style tag, you can now come here and add your words, your selectors. So let's say that I want to style my paragraph, right? So okay, let's style this UL, right? Let's style this UL. So if I want to style this UL, or let me just say my nav. So I'll have to call my words, my nav, and then let me give it a background color of what? Green, and a color of what? White. So you see, with this, I have selected my words. This is what we call, in this case, my nav is serving as a word, as a selector, while this my opening and closing curly braces are words, are where I define my properties and values. So does that make sense? So if I come back here, if I come back to my code, I'm going to see, I'm using that my nav is now what? Green in color, and the background is now green, while the text is what? White. So this is what we call was. So this process is called was in internal was CSS. Then you can also write the entire code within the head section, within the head elements. So you see these head elements, right? You see these head elements inside this. You can still come and place it at the top. So there are various ways you can write you can either write it at the top or below before the words, the closing body tag. So if you paste this here already, it will still work very perfectly. As you can see, our work is appearing as it should. So the third type of CSS is what we call the external words CSS. So this external CSS involves separating words, separating your CSS. So you need to separate your CSS and make it different from what? From your HTML. So if you have to do that, then it means that inside your words, now it's always good to create another folder. You see the way I'm creating my folders, right? To make my work appear very, very neat. Then I can come here and create what? A folder and name it what? Styles, or name it CSS. Let me just name it CSS. So inside this CSS now, I'm going to have my words. Let me create my words, my first distance. So I'm going to have index dot words CSS. So this index.css is where I'm going to start writing. So I've created a new file, a separate file, a file that is different from my words, that is different from my HTML. I think someone should mute. I don't know. Someone is making noise at the background. Okay, Daniel. Daniel, you can mute your mic, please. So Daniel. All right. Thank you so much. So here, I can now do what we call. So after creating it, I've created my external CSS, right? And then I will have to communicate. You see here, I've created, since it's an external file, so we need to know your HTML has to be aware that there is a file called what? There's a CSS file that wants to start designing it or start manipulating it. So you need to create a communication or a connection between them, right? By using what? The link what? The link tag. So, and it's always linked in your words. Inside your words, your head tag. So using the words, the link element. So you see this link, you see the way it is. So link element is another self-closing words element. So inside this link, you now put your words, your rel. Now, so the link element has different attributes. So one of the attributes is what we call the words, the rel attributes. Now, this rel attribute is an attribute that's used to declare the relationship between the words, the element, the CSS file, and the words, the HTML file. So, of course, and what's the relationship? Relationship is that um, this our external sheet that we are trying to link to our HTML is a what? Is a style sheet. It's not just any type of documents. So inside this rel, you can put your words, your style words sheets here. Then after that, you now need to just the same way we have the SROC, where you have to locate the file parts of that file or of our images. So the same way, if we want to locate our CSS file, so we need to use href, right? We need to use href, and then inside our href, right, we now call equal to, we now say equal to, then we now have to locate. So since my CSS is inside the folder, I'll just do my words, my dot and forward slash, and then navigate to my folder. As you can see, it's bringing out all the folders that are inside my application. I can now choose what? CSS. After choosing CSS, this name will automatically appear, and then you click on it. So with this, you have successfully linked your words, your CSS to your words HTML. So right now, you can now, you see all these things I wrote, I can now come and remove them safely, right? This my nav. So I don't need this style again. I don't need internal CSS. In fact, I don't need internal CSS again, and I don't need what? And I don't need my internal or inline CSS. So I can just come here and paste the code. So once I paste the code, let me format it. So as you can see, if I come back here, my code will still be running what? Perfectly. I still have my what? My background. So now I can have let's say you see my body now. Let me try to change the color of my body. I can say I can put something like this body and then call the words and then call the class here. I'll just say background color. I'll give it a value of what? Black, and then put color white. Now, what this will do is that, you see my body now, I'm selecting my entire body elements. So here, as you can see, everything I've written here is inside my body elements. So whatever I write inside that body, as you can see here, my application has changed towards to black. So my entire page has changed towards to black. That is the function of that of the selectors and properties and values. So now there's something important we need to add to our external CSS. And what is this? So if you look at this page very well, you see that there is a space by my left. You see before this green this thing now, there's a space here by the left, by the top, and by my left, right? So you need to remove this space because it is the browser that gives that space. Maybe let me remove this color. Let me remove this styling here so that I can see what I'm talking about clearly. So if you watch here now, there's a space by the left, by the top. So, but we may not need this space. So we need to be able to give our application the space and the contents, our HTML contents, the space they need. So for us to achieve that, we need to use what we call, there's a type of selector called a universal selector. Now, this universal selector is used to select our entire words, documents, or entire HTML. So I'll have something here, padding. But anyway, let me not go deep into it because this should be in our next class. So, but let me just do that. Padding 0 and what? Margin was 0. And margin 0. Now, if you look closely, you see that after every property, I always add a semicolon after it to close it. So this means that after reading this line of code, this is the end of this particular word, of this particular property. And then it will enable you to do what? Write other properties, define many other properties. So once I remove it, you see that this is going to throw an error, right? Because it's now seeing this color as part of this word line. So this is how to write your words, your CSS styles or your CSS code. So as you can see, as I've added that margin and padding 0, my this thing has, you see, all this space has cleared. Now, the next thing is, are we still following? Are we still here?
Yes. Yes, you are following.
All right. So the next thing is what we call, so let us look at selectors. So have you seen these selectors that we are talking about now? Let us dive into them in details. Good. Now let us dive into them in details. So I've already told you what selectors is all about. So we have the different types of these types of selectors determine which HTML to do what to style, right? So if we want to style a particular element, so how do we call this element? How do we select this particular element before we do what? Before we start styling it? So there are different approaches through which we can select our elements. So number one way is using what we call the universal selector. Now this universal selector, I've already used this. It's just your star. This your multiplication sign. This star sign. So it targets all the elements on the what on the page, which means that if you want to style all the elements, so let's assume that. So let me remove this thing here. Let's assume that I want all my elements, the color of all the elements to be what to be. As you can see here, all the text here are what all the text here are black in color. So if I want all my text without selecting whether without what's it called specifying whether it's a paragraph or a paragraph or H1 or any of them. So I'll just have to do what select all of them at once. So I can come here and say I want my colors to be what all my colors to be what all the color of my elements to be what red. So if I go back to my page, as you can see, all the text is now what red. That is what universal selectors do. So it selects all the entire elements without specifying whether it is was H1 or H2 or H3 or section and so on. Then what type of selectors we have is what we call the type selector. Now, this targets elements by their words, by their tag name, or you can name them named selectors. You can call them named selectors, right? Now, these named selectors is means selecting an element by its words name, right? So we have used this previously. So using this style, if you want to style only your words, only your H1, right? You see, this is my H1, right? Where is it? So if I want to select only this H1 and style it, so I'll just have to do what? Select it by its words, its name, and then I'll give it a color of what? Blue. So, and if I go back to my code, you see that my blue, my H1 now does what? Now has a color of what? Blue. But there is one we have different ways of selecting elements, but one thing with this or one setback about this is that about this name selector is that it will select all the elements. You know, when we start building websites now, you see the way this thing is. It's possible that you're going to have many, like hundreds of or as many H1 as possible, right? You're going to have many paragraphs. So selecting an element by its name will involve you selecting all the elements together. But there are certain scenarios where you would not want to give all the elements the same words, the same styling, right? So that's just the only setback with this. So which means that as I've called this H1, it means that every other element in your application, where every other H1 elements in your application will do what? We have this color of what? Of blue. So now there are other ways through which you can solve that problem of specifying. For instance, if I want only, of course, we have two H1s here, right? So what if I want to style only this first H1 and then leave the second word H1? What if I don't want all the text to be black? or all the text to be white. So what do I do? So now that is where there's another part called class selector. Now this class selector targets elements with a specific word class attributes. So now there's what we call the class attributes. So let us quickly talk about it. Now this class attributes is like an identifier, right? It's an identifier to a word, to a particular element, or to one or two elements. So, for instance, you see this H1, since I have two H1, right? I can say, okay, let me group them. Let me have a class of, let me give this H1 a class of what? Heading. Now, you can give it any name you like, depending on the function of that element, depending on what the element is doing, right? Now, as you can see here, I've added a what? A class of what? Heading to my word. I've added a class of heading to my H1, and then if I want to now type this H1, I will now come to my words, to my CSS, and then call the name of the words of the class. Now, if you want to select an element by its class name, you need to use the words a dot, and then after writing a dot, you call the word, the name of that word, the name of that class. So this is going to be what? Dot. Um, Barry, what's the name of our class? Which name did you give our H1? What's the value of the class?
Heading.
Yeah, you're correct. Well done. So heading. So if I put a dot, dot is always used to select words, classes by their elements by their name, by their class name. So if I put dot heading, so with this dot heading, my CSS will go and look for all the elements that have a class with a value of what? With a value of what? Heading, right? Now, one thing with classes is that many elements can have words. Let me tell you one beautiful story about classes. Eh? Now you see classes, it has several advantages. Now, number one advantage is that um, two or more elements can have exactly the same class name. For instance, this my element, so I can still copy this my class, this and I still paste in this second H1. In fact, I can even add it to this paragraph. You see, I can have different elements, two or more elements can have what? The same class name. And then another thing about class is that a class can have two values. So I can put here, I can even come here and say H1 here, right? H1, you see, I give a space. So if you want an element to have two class names, you have to do what? Give a space before writing the word, the second class name. Now, the importance of using two class names is that there are conditions where you might want to do what? Because if I go back here now, watch here. If I go back to my code, what happens? As you can see here, all my introduction, my paragraph, and my second heading, you see, all of them are now having what? A blue color, which is what is here, right? Which is what I defined here. All of them are now having a blue color. But my question now is, what if I want um, what if I want this introducing the best training center? What if I want this particular H1 to have extra styles apart from these blue color now? If I want it to have additional styles that are different from these other ones, what I will just do is that I'll give it a word, another word, class name. Already, I've given it a second class name. So I will have words. So if I come here, I'll put my dots and call the name H1 and then style it. So I can decide to give it a red color, right? The color of what? Red. So with this, have you seen that I have singled it out from every other distinct that it's sharing the same class name with. But not just that. Even if I still want it to maintain a blue color, I can decide to increase the font size, right, to make it different from other ones. So I can just give it to what, 60 pixels, for instance. So as I've increased this, have you seen that it's now very large? So therefore, it is having a blue color and additionally a font size that is different from these other ones that it's sharing the same class name with. Now, one more thing before we go for today and before we ask our question is what we call the what? The ID. Now, this ID is used to select a single element with a unique ID. Just the same way we have ID cards, right? So one thing with IDs is that no two elements should have what? One ID. No two elements should have one ID. What do I mean by that? So in Nigeria now, is there anybody that have the same ID card in Nigeria or the same what is it called again? The same identity, ZBVN or what which
Uh,
reminds me just like NIN now, two people cannot have the same NIN. So the same way that NIN is like a unique something that is unique to you. In fact, which means that in our as these elements are now, if we want to distinguish H1 or this paragraph from other paragraphs, because I've told you already that we have many paragraphs. When we start building website now, you see that depending on how complex or how big the website is, you see that you're going to have many paragraphs or many H1. But if you want to identify each of them one after the other using a unique ID, you need to give them what IDs. So, and how do you do that? You do that by using a word, an attribute called what ID. So if you put your ID and then put your equal to, so let's say that this is what first heading. You see the way I named this first heading, right? So that is the same way I have my first heading to show you that, oh, I have many H1 here, but this particular H1 is my what? My first H1. I can even name it, just say first H1, right? Then, and if I want to style it, I will now come here and call my words. So how do you call IDs? You call IDs using a hashtag, and then you call the name of the words, the name of the ID, and say first words heading. First H1 is already appearing here, and then I will now come and style it. So let me give it a color of words orange. So if I go back to my code, if I go back to my browser, you see that my H1 is now having a color of what? Of orange. So that's the power of ID. ID is used to give unique identities to what? To our elements. So does anybody have any question? So after today's class, you can
not
come back and
sorry, sir. Not question. Sorry, sir. Not question, but a kind of observation. The last that ID that you just did. So what I want to ask that, or maybe I want to say about that, but even the last one, the one preceding the last one you did, that was I think on which one was that now? Sorry, which one you did? The one you did before the ID. You know, there is one you did after the universal. There's one you did
okay,
that you
that's
changed
the class selector.
class selector. Yes, you said. So I want to know what is the difference between that ID and that class selector. But I doubt it is a class selector. So because
Okay, so
that particular one, you change the font, you only change the color. The same what's it called? H1 you change to blue. The same H1 you change to orange. So I don't know. And you said it's a unique what's it called? A unique element, because you just speak it single-handedly, and the same thing you did to other books, because that was when you increase the font size to 60 pixels instead of 40 pixels like the other ones. So I just want to know what's the difference, because to me I didn't see any difference between the two.
Okay, so now the difference between the two is that from what I have told you, now an ID is a unique identity. Now, what do I mean by unique identity? It means that if you have like 100, let's assume that we have 100 H1 now, H1 elements in our website, right? Right? Are you following my analysis?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I want all my H1 in my entire website to have the same color, let's say a color of blue, right? Now,
Okay.
in that case, I'm going to give all my H1, they're going to have what? The same class name, right? They're going to have the same class name, right? Now, this same class name enables us to, so once you give all of them, so it means that all of them are going to have the class name of what? Heading, 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 heading throughout. But now, if I want to, let's say that as I've given all my color, all my H1, a 100 H1, a color of what? But now, if I want to maybe make the first one red, if I want to make the first H1 red or the third H1 red, I don't need to use the class name. Two things are involved. So the next thing I'll just do is to just give it an ID, right? So just like here now, my heading, this is how I start my heading. My heading is what? Blue, right? My heading is blue. What's here? I have two headings here. I have two headings. So, and the first heading is this introducing the best training center, while the second heading is what? Our media section. So you see, but I don't want the first heading to be what? To be blue in color. So I have to give it an identity that is reserved for that one alone, which is what? First H1, right? So I'll now come to my CSS using and then select the words, the ID using a word, a hashtag. So once I put my hashtag H1 and then call it, so your CSS already knows that okay, it is only one element that has this particular ID, and if you do what, automatically change it. Then have you seen now? It is now having a color of what? Orange. That is different from, but other H1s are having what? Blue. Then another thing is that when you start working with JavaScript now or some other programming languages now, and you want to select a particular element, right? You want to manipulate a particular element. So those languages like JavaScript now will be expecting that it is only one element that should have an ID, in the sense that meaning that two elements cannot have the same ID. So as you have mentioned this ID now, this ID, right? So you cannot come here and start naming this first one ID again. Another thing is already right. So even at a CSS level, this might still work, but at JavaScript level, if you want to style this in JavaScript, you can't select this particular element because it will confuse the distance. Because in fact, the sum of the whole thing is that two elements are not supposed to have the same identity name or ID name. So, but for classes, a class, number one thing about class is that two elements can have the same class name, just like I have here, heading and heading. This is correct. So, and it's in a situation where you want all the elements to have the same style. And then another thing is that you can give a particular element two class names. So you see the way I have this, I can even say that this is what? First what? Heading 2. So instead of using ID, instead of giving it an ID, I can give it a what? A second class name, right? And then remove this ID. So, and then it should not be unique. It should not be different from this second heading. So, since I've done that, I'll just come here and change my distance to dot and select that ID. So if I come back and select that class, so if I come back here now, as you can see, I'm already having the same color or the same styling I give it before. Is that clear now? Is that clear? Anyway, I'll drop a link on the group for us to read it. So the assignment I'm giving you today is so you read about this group selector and the descendant selector. So it's pretty straightforward. I've already talked about these other ones like font size, font style, font weight. So we'll talk about this quickly in the next class and then talk about the box model too. So um, so the assignments you do for me is to read this up and have a good knowledge of it. Have a practical experience of it. Does anybody have any other question? Anybody have any other question? Please, let's try and be reading our notes. So please, it's very, very important. We can't waste time we can't provide notes for you and you not read it. Eh? Is anybody that is married here?
So you notes, you not give us note now, it's only the video.
I pasted the notes on the group chat. It was there.
I can't find it too.
It was done on the group chat. Check now.
I even prefer it to all this.
So the video will be there and the notes will also be there. So the assignment will go and read up the remaining part of the assignment, the remaining part of the notes. Then when we come the next class, we just discuss over it and then move over to the next topic. Does that make sense?
Okay. Sorry, the note I can't find the note here. Or which is it not January cohort 2025 that
Yes, that's
sent?
it. That's it. I will mark it. I will
Please,
just outline it there.
yeah, just mark it that notes, so that one will know that this one is notes.
All right, no problem. I'll paste this one too. All right,
Okay,
that's all from me. Who is this girl? Afolabi, what's up? Okay, Precious is no longer here. All right, you should have a good night rest.
Okay, thank you. Maybe there are some they joined the cyber security today. So that was what they initially I joined it. So eventually I now saw this notification that we should, for those of us that started the what to do for now website development, we should join the online class. That was when I now joined. So I was already watching the cyber security before I eventually saw this. I now joined. So there
All
are
right.
some that did not know that online classes anyway. This live class.
All right, no problem. Take care. In the absence, is there any other
Okay,
question?
thank you.
Right, bye.